I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional custodians of this land, the Yugambeh and Kombuberri people. I would like to acknowledge their strength, resilience and capacity, for they are the oldest living cultures in history. I would also like to pay my respect to the elders, both past, present and emerging, for they hold the hopes, dreams, traditions and cultures of Indigenous Australians. I wanted to find out how visible and valued Indigenous Australian cultures and country were in my local living environment. I began to walk through spaces that I visit daily. I did not see any significant art, culture or historical landmarks that led me to believe that Indigenous Australians were valued in my local spaces. As I became educated through academia and online resources about Indigenous Australians' history and culture, I came to a shocking realisation. I felt feelings of emptiness due to the unknown, sadness and selfishness due to the fact that I had no idea how oppressed and unfairly treated Indigenous Australians were throughout our history and society. I live in Oxenford, south of the Cooma River and not far from the theme parks Movie World Wet n Wild. Online resources suggest that Oxenford history dates back to 1869, where Mr. W.R. Oxenford settled and Cabinet Minister Russell Hinds contributed to the development of housing and economic growth. The land was originally used for experimental farming, however now consists of local shopping centres, industrial estates, theme parks and a primary school. There was no mention of the traditional owners of the land, the Bulungin, Wangara and Burimbara tribe. My local area lacks recognition of Indigenous culture and history. I then became aware of the truth about the devastating effects of British colonisation had on Indigenous Australians. 1788, the day that the British arrived and colonised this land they claimed to be unknown. The land was known. It was known to Indigenous Australians. The first sighting of Indigenous Australians was in 1606 by a Dutch vessel. The British did not want Indigenous Australians to be a part of their new establishment. Indigenous Australians resisted this change, resulting in violent attacks, the spread of infectious disease, the destabilisation of Indigenous economies and disposition of Indigenous land. The land was inhibited, stolen and then systemically institutionalised by British colonisation. After a little more research, I found the Jewelrigal Aboriginal Cultural Centre, tours and information hub. I headed down to the centre in Burleigh where I met with a Yugambeh man who took me on a tour of Burleigh Cove, where I was able to trek the Dreaming Mountain. It was there where I was made aware of the traditional sites used by the Yugambeh people, including ancient midden and carving stones, and traditions that still have significance to Indigenous Australians today. Australia prides itself on being a multicultural nation and has a strong belief in equality and freedom for all. However, they lack acknowledging and valuing Indigenous Australians within society. Current policies and practices do not acknowledge the traditions or values of Indigenous Australians, creating an unequal society and a lack of self-determination for Indigenous Australians. Current examples include the underrepresentation of Indigenous Australians in government, institutional racism, discrimination, and culturally unsafe practice. I have a genuine desire to work towards social justice and inclusion of marginalised groups. To become an effective ally, I need to gain as much knowledge as possible about oppression, experience cultural humility, commit to staying conscious and engaged, collaborate and build relationships with marginalised groups, and reflect on experiences and acknowledge any internal conflicts before I move forward and help others.